Um, so how's Josie doing?
She's doing good. Seems more, we're definitely seeing like more and more energy as she's like on a week to week basis. Got her first round of shots. So we're staying around, like staying away from other dogs for about 10 days right now. And um, I think the biggest thing this week that we've realized is that like as she's getting more energy, we need to figure out how to like channel it a bit better.
Hmm.
So as she's been like when she reaches her like asshole stage, we've
Sure.
been calling it, like when she's like nippy and play with me and climb, she wants to climb on us, like we've been trying to start doing more like structured like training with her. So
Okay. To like redirect the energy.
yeah, and that seems to be going pretty well.
Okay.
She learns, she's like doing stay as of like this morning. She's holding it for about 10 seconds, which we're excited about. So
Okay.
just trying to like work up a little bit there. And
Yeah.
um,
Bathroom schedule has been pretty solid. Very few accidents over the last couple days, and the like whining and like resisting time after going into the crate appears to be, gradually declining too. So I'm feeling okay about those items.
Good. Good. Yeah. So just keep an eye on it. As long as it's going down, um, I'm not really perceiving any issues. Um, Let me think here. With the puppy biting and stuff, so you're doing a lot of redirecting. I think we did talk about like correcting if needed, like the pet corrector and all that stuff. Yeah. Has that been working for you, or is she kind of?
yeah, I think she's so for the most part, mostly it like startles her and she kind of sits, but then she'll kind of go back after us like 15 seconds later or so.
Yeah, I feel like she's testing the boundary too. Like she'll still put her like mouth on my hand, but just won't open it. Like she's definitely is interested in finding out exactly what she can do before it's
Sure.
too much.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, and it's also like, I think the pet corrector is a little bit inconsistent on our front just because it's like sometimes she'll like bite on us and it's like whatever 5 feet away, so we have to like we'll correct her in the moment in that we'll like kind of give her our like sound
Or
and
do like the quick bonk or something. And
yeah.
but I feel like that like you had said last time we talked, that like skill component of being able to do it ourselves.
Uh-huh.
I think I am erring on the side of being too light, and she is perceiving it as more playful than anything else. So if I don't have like the can within arm's reach, I feel like I'm sending an inconsistent message to her.
Right. So my whole thing with dogs and puppies is always just assume. Okay. Whereas people tend to err on the side of, okay, I've corrected you and I hope you've learned, kind of, like a person would. Like if for example, if I were to say something mean to like a friend, and then they respond with, wow, that really hurt my feelings, I feel bad, right? So then I go, okay, I don't want to do that again because I don't want to make my friend feel that way. And then the guilt factor, right? Like humans are capable of like learning and not doing it again. Doesn't mean that we were perfect, right? But generally we're pretty good about that.
Mm-hmm.
Puppies, she's a 3 to 4 year old kid forever, right? So I always err on the side of, if you're willing to test it, like you've not learned, right? So I always just assume that the puppy or dog is going to repeat the behavior, especially at this stage of training. So I always, as much as possible, try to keep things with me, so that I can be consistent with the corrections, because she will become a gambler where she'll go, I did the mouth thing. I didn't put my mouth entirely, but I touched, right? Which technically should be corrected, okay? Because she's testing the boundary.
Corrected.
Excuse me?
Even the like touching should be corrected just because.
If you're thinking Josie looks like she's testing a boundary, she most likely is.
Okay.
Otherwise, why would you think that, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
So it's like a kid, it's like, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you,
Right.
and then they play that boundary, which if you let it slide, they're really, obviously the intention is there. They're just playing that fine line, which is still not healthy, right? So for the puppy, I assume you're testing the boundary. I'm going to correct that as well. Okay. Because it should be not even playing games. If she wants to put her mouth to lick you and to nuzzle you, it'll be very clear.
Yeah.
Mhm.
As opposed to, what if I just do this?
Yeah.
Okay. And then this becomes, what about this? Okay.
Yeah.
That's
So,
exactly.
exactly. That's why I stop it right there, because the process is there. It's just she's slowly escalating. Okay. And that'll help diminish things even further.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So with any behavior, at some point you'll learn to recognize the thought before the action. And then we've taught that the action is inappropriate. Then it becomes the thought.
Mhm.
Okay. And then it's correcting that so that the puppy learns or the dog learns both the action and the thought of the action are not allowed. Okay. And then things become even better.
That makes sense.
So then that's normal stuff for your puppy. Did I send you guys the links to the videos?
Yes.
Okay, so you do have the bonker videos and stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. Just so you have that and everything, so, and I was just talking about this with another client, since we're very logical, let's say the testing the boundary, you do the pet corrector and then a light bonk, right? And then for the next 2 months, she keeps just pushing that boundary, right? And it's not terrible, right? If anything, it's cute because it's funny, right?
Yeah.
Logically, as a human, you would think a firm correction would not be applicable to that behavior because it's so subtle, right? But to the dog, she may need that degree in order to stop that behavior, even though it seems very mundane. Their thought of logic is very different than the human. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So sometimes I'll get a dog where it's a very simple behavior. Maybe they counter surf, not the end of the world. Who cares, right? And the owner does all the corrections, and they're like, Jesse, I've done all this stuff. The dog keeps doing it, And I'm like, well, everything you're doing technically is appropriate to a human, but to your dog, it doesn't faze them.
Mm-hmm.
So they may need a much firmer correction, or at least firmer at minimum, to stop that behavior,
Mm-hmm.
So there's inconsistencies there sometimes, and that's just like FYI. I'm not picking that up here, but just something to think about where you'd be like, wow, does a puppy really need a harsh correction for something that simple? Because it's simple to you, not to the puppy or the dog.
Right.
Okay. So, but yeah, everything you're going, like, you're experiencing is normal stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think what I'm hearing from you is just kind of stay the course, keep it up.
Yes. Yeah. And if you see it doesn't change, then that's where we think about, if it's really that big of a deal, we have to address it.
Yeah.
Right.
I think I especially need to be more firm, and also like make sure that I've got, anytime I'm with her, I should have the corrector holstered and ready to go, basically. Yeah. So that it's not an issue of it being too far away to properly correct her.
Yeah, you got a little utility belt, you got your pet corrector, you got your treats, you got a bonker.
We get him a fanny pack.
Yeah. So
when we're doing the corrections, one of the things, we've done a little bit of research on just like our body language and what we're doing.
Yep.
And you mentioned like keeping a chill mind, even if the dog bites you or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the time we'll like be on the couch and she'll like, I don't know, often we'll sort of be at the same level when we're issuing the corrections. Like she likes to, a lot of times when the biting starts, is like her favorite thing ever is to like climb all over Eric. Is there like something that we should be doing with our body language, or like from a mindset perspective in the corrections? Like, is there a possibility that we're like counteracting what we're saying by like the way that we're delivering it?
Oh, so like kind of, and this is an exaggeration, but if you correct, like looking not tough, but like assertive, as opposed to like just being regular self, right?
I guess my question is, I think it was kind of triggered by Eric saying like, oh, I need to be more firm in my corrections.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I guess I'm trying to figure out like if you have recommendations around like what that looks like and how, like, could us being firm be misconstrued by the dog in some way, or do we need to be standing, or like?
At this stage, not really.
Okay.
The only time I see energy and body language negate the correction is one, if you correct her and she yelps, and then you go, "Oh my God, Josie,"
Mm-hmm.
that for sure is going to negate. Or, and this is more advanced, but like if I remember, we had a case where the German Shepherd was aggressive to the girlfriend, but not the boyfriend. Okay, she couldn't brush him, or he'd growl and try to bite her. So we had the dog muzzled up, and we're correcting the dog with e-collar, and with the husband perfectly fine, no issues. But the girlfriend's body language was very like shy and like timid. And even though she was remoting and correcting the dog very harshly, it kept growling. And
Mm-hmm.
she's like, why? And we're like, because it's going by, it's like a person in the movies, you'll see them holding a gun and they're like this, right? They're shaking. And they're like, I know you're not going to shoot me. You're scared of hell, right? Whereas opposed to a person holding the gun like this, very confident, right? That's a very different scenario. That's where body language would factor in, right? With your puppy, it's really just correction, and I'm just myself.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's no conflict, there's no anger, and really the firmness of the correction comes into the correction itself,
Okay.
not so much the person.
Got it.
Okay, so like when I mentioned earlier about the firmness of like the bonking, right? Like in the video, if you watch the third one with the boxer puppy, it's a very firm boom.
Yeah.
Right? But his energy, other than an assertive no, was the same.
Got it.
Right? So it's just so the firmness came through the correction, not so much the body language.
Got it.
Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That does make sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing I usually recommend for people is if you want to learn about body language, just watch Cesar Millan.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, for your puppy, not necessary. Like, don't feel like you need to learn it. As long as your corrections are good, there shouldn't be an issue.
Got it. Yeah. The only yeah, I don't think I've ever seen her. I'm wondering now if like the pet corrector isn't firm enough, because I've never seen her in any of the corrections that we've done. I've never seen her yelp or like generally be afraid. Usually her reaction is like to kind of sit down and kind of like
Observe.
a confusion and a pause and kind of like settle a little bit, but I've never seen her be actively afraid of anything.
Yeah. So, and are you using the sound, or have you sprayed her bottom as well?
You sprayed her bottom as well, yeah.
Okay. So what that tells me is she's a more confident, assertive personality, which isn't a bad thing. Okay. But that she's blowing off those corrections. We're kind of like, oh, like I don't like it, but it's not the most terrible thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So if once you finish with this can, like if you don't feel like it's a considerable change, I don't worry about getting another one. I start looking to other methods. Okay.
Okay.
That's why I give people like a spectrum. Every dog is different. I had a kind of Corso puppy, I don't know if I mentioned, that was scared of the pet corrector through adulthood.
Yeah.
100-something pound dog, right?
Yeah.
Very soft personality.
Yeah.
So, and just because she's a lab or golden retriever? Golden retriever? Yeah. I love Goldens because they're super stable. In my experience, they take the corrections well, they recover very quickly, and they learn very easily.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, but people go by, it's a Golden, right? But any other dog would bite a Golden, and another Golden would bite a Golden to correct, like it was any other dog or breed. Okay.
Yeah.
So it sounds about on par what I would expect. So as you correct her more and you learn more, it'll start to make more sense.
Okay.
Stop it.
You getting in trouble?
Not good. Doing on the woodwork. That's good.
Yeah. Anything else?
The other thing that we talked about, so last time we chatted, we hadn't really used the gentle leader, and we've been doing that a lot more.
Good.
She's so much better on walks. I'm kind of figuring out how to like use it in different ways. So like I've kind of gotten her to like sit at certain times when I need her to, like I'll just kind of like pull it up a little bit and she'll kind of sit down. And I'm wondering if there's sort of more, I'm just kind of like winging it with a lot of the ways that I'm using it. And I'm wondering if there's more like structured ways that we need to be learning how to use that tool, or if it's more just kind of like puppy on a leash, she's going to be a little wild. Like
A little bit of both.
Okay.
Right? So my whole thing is always puppies under 6 months, I don't expect much. Okay. I don't allow them to be little jerks, because it's a very common thought process is it's a puppy, he doesn't know any better.
Yeah.
But again, at 3 to 4 weeks within the litter, they're correcting each other and establishing rules and boundaries. Okay.
Yeah.
So and you guys are doing good. You're correcting and you're learning and you're addressing things. So with the gentle leader, I look at it as a management tool in the interim. The common thought behind gentle leader and positive reinforcement is at some point you progress past all this stuff and the dog is so well trained that you don't need it anymore.
Right.
In my opinion, it's not the case with any tool. I don't care if you use gentle leader, prong collar, slit chain, or e-collar. When a dog understands or knows that the reinforcer, whether it be positive or negative, is absent, performance always decreases. Right? So like for a person, if I worked for somebody and they decided, I need you to keep working, but I'm not going to pay you, I'm going to say, screw you. Like, I'm not going to work for free, right? Kind of same thing for the dog. So there either has to be a positive motivator or a negative motivator, right? In my book, it's a balance of both. So in terms of using it, it's good for introducing pressure. So like when you said, when you pull up to create the sitting motion, that's pressure. So that's good. In terms of walking, there's a way of using it so that it gives more optimal control, to where she's not kind of zooming all over the place, or pulling to the side and stuff, because people tend to give the whole leash. And then what happens is the puppy or the dog is still ahead, but because the head is being turned, it's not as bothersome. Okay, they don't have the full power of their body weight to pull you, but there's still no structure. So what I do with puppies is I just shorten it to where it keeps her at my side, but it's not pulling her so her head's like this. That's too short. It should be like this, and maybe if she pulls ahead a little bit, it starts to deter her, and she slows down, and then it straightens out, and she's fine. So she learns, if I go ahead a little bit, this happens, I don't like it, but if I'm here, nothing happens, and I avoid the pressure. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can coach you through that stuff too.
I think that's about where we're at. I think we've been pretty good about keeping her beside us or behind us.
Yeah. And she, aside from like right after she poops, she'll want to like run a little bit faster. But aside from that, she doesn't get too bossy about pulling ahead. I actually get
her default is like
a couple steps behind or on the side. And I've actually had more of her protesting and like, oh no, I don't want to go anymore. And I've had to do a little bit of a, just kind of keep walking, use the forward energy to kind of make her come.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, yeah, typical puppy stuff.
Stop it.
Yeah. Anything else question-wise?
The only other question that I thought of, did you have one?
We've read a couple of, I don't know if we should probably ask a veterinarian as well to weigh in on this, but we've read a little bit of conflicting information on stairs. For the most part, we've been carrying her up and down. She's at like almost 12 weeks now, and seemed like most of what we were saying is like try to minimize stairs for the first 3 months, but I feel like we're getting close to that figure, and I want to know what your take was, like with like hip and joint stuff, basically. And that's less behavioral, so maybe it's more of a vet question.
I mean, a question for your vet, and also just personal preference. All my puppies, I just have to tell people treat them normally, you know. And Great Dane puppies, obviously, same thing with the whole joints and stuff like that. Because what can end up happening is a puppy ends up being scared of stairs because there's the introduction to them was so far gone later that the stairs freak them out.
Yeah.
I've been afraid. Like, so we did when we first got her, we were making her go up and down the stairs, and then Maddie sent us a few things that was just like, be careful, like mostly just like don't encourage her to like jump on and off things and like carry her up and down the stairs. So there are times like whatever, if my hand was full of the package, I'll let her walk up the stairs. Up I have no problem with, and stop it. Up I have no problem with, and most of the time we'll carry her anyway. And like I had a friend over on Saturday or whatever, and she was like so excited and went down a few stairs. So if the motivation is there, she does it. I don't think that she's afraid of it. I don't get the feeling that she's afraid.
Yeah.
Do you?
I would look at it as, like too much of anything can be bad, right? Is that if she's just going up the stairs, like each time or up and down the stairs, each time, this is great. Each time, you go for a potty, with her, like for me personally, I wouldn't have an issue with it.
Okay.
And I was actually going to do this week, and I have to make a note of it. But I'm very curious because in all my years of training puppies and stuff, I've always just told people, just treat them like puppies. Yes, don't overwork them. Like, don't take them for an hour run.
Right.
But when a puppy's tired, they'll go and lay down. They know when to rest. They know, like, it's instinctual stuff, right?
Yeah.
As I want to look up online, this was a Great Dane that was over-exercised. And to see if there's anything that actually is behind it, like that's like, yes, this happened to my Great Dane. And to see how much of it is actually out there, because I've never come across it personally.
Yeah, I don't know. Maddie sent us a few articles. She had some there's like a lab breeder, I think, around that had some like x-rays and stuff of overworked dogs in the first week. So she sent over a few articles. Our vet we didn't ask about the overwork specifically, but she was concerned about our diet because she would grow too fast. So I think there's a lot of sort of, I'm getting also a lot of conflicting, there's just so much, you can get evidence on both sides of the story for everything. It feels like with pets, we were debating a bit about vaccines and what do we want? What do we what's core? What do we not want? And it feels like for everything you can get, the pet world is so different than human medical stuff. It feels like a totally different game.
Sure. I always tell people, go with what makes you feel good at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Right? I don't care if someone doesn't take their puppy out for a walk and expose them and all that stuff, right? Because it's their dog. Because I would hate to push something on someone and then something happens that's negative and they turn around and say, well, Jesse, I did what you said and this happened, right?
Yeah.
So I always tell people, err with what makes you feel good at the end of the day, and life happens.
Yeah.
I get people that do things by the book, behaviorally, all the fear stages and stuff, right? And still end up with a screwed up dog.
Yeah.
That's why I never make a big deal about stuff, because my whole thing is I just go with what life throws at us.
Yeah.
So my whole thing is their dogs, they don't read books on how to raise their puppies. They don't go on Google and search am I exercising my puppy too much, right? They would be out doing their own thing, eating random crap, all that stuff, right? Yeah. When you throw humans into play and we're aware and obviously we care and we want the best and we want nothing bad to happen, right? Things get complicated.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that would be my advice, is just err on the side of what makes you feel good at the end of the day.
just chill.
Yeah.
I need that advice more than you do, I think.
And you're not the only ones. My other clients too, like, you know, I had a client where everybody was saying, don't walk your puppy, right? Period. And it was completely anti the family. And they're like, is it really a big deal? And I said, just stay away from the dog park, stay away from highly trafficked places. If all your neighbors go to one spot to go potty, then do a little bit of a longer walk, go outside of that, right? I was like, and as long as you're, how would you say, limiting exposure, you should be fine, right? And I, you know, shit happens. It's unfortunate, right? But they're like, well, you're the first person who's told us that, but that's more along the lines of how we are. I said, then good. Like, if that makes you feel good at the end of the day, then do what you're gonna do, you know? So,
question for you about whatever like tips or best practice advice you might have for how we're interacting with other humans when we're out and about. Mm-hmm. She's so damn cute that everybody wants to say hi all the time. Mm-hmm. And we want to be able to set a boundary without being like jerks to people. But if we have to be jerks to people, we'll do it, you know?
Sure. So one thing is, and nobody should be touching anybody's dog due to COVID. You know, if you're on that train of thinking, right?
Yeah.
Because your dog is a service. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because Maddie posted this on her Instagram, and I remember responding to it because it was the exact same thing that I was thinking. But someone tweeted like, you know, a lady wanted to pet her dog and she like declined, and the lady was like, you know, dogs can't get COVID. She's like, but my dog is a service.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that's one thing. Okay. So the other thing is, it's your dog. Right. So I had a lady who had a French bulldog puppy in the downtown area, and she couldn't walk a block because every person was stopping, like, oh my God, look at that Frenchie puppy. Right. Mm-hmm. To the point where she couldn't exercise her dog. And she said, you know, Jesse, what do you suggest I do? I'm like, well, one, pop some headphones in and keep walking. I don't even acknowledge them, right? Yeah. Because the moment you delay, you give the opportunity for the brain to keep going, right? Or two, if you don't want to be a jerk, then I say, we're training, you know, please don't pet my dog.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
People most of the time will respond to, we're training, don't touch my dog. But realistically speaking, you shouldn't have to have a reason.
Right.
So it's like, if I were to ask a woman for her number or her name or say hello, there's nothing that says she has to respond.
Yeah.
Right? But a lot of women feel like they have to say, oh, I have a boyfriend. Oh, like this, they give a reason. They don't need to. They don't have to respond. They don't have to say no even, right? Or they could just say no. And I go, okay. And I walk away, right?
Yeah.
Same thing. You don't have to give a reason. If you say, oh, no, thanks, and just keep moving, just keep it moving, okay? And if it makes you feel better to say something, I have no problem with that either, right? And you may come across the person who will get pissy with you. And you can be as polite as possible, okay? And they're still gonna be pissy with you. That's why me personally, I don't even acknowledge anymore. Because then it makes you feel bad, and then you're kind of like, you know, carrying that negative energy because of that interaction. But those would be your, you know, the three things. Technically, nobody should be touching anybody's dog because of what's going on. Mm-hmm. Two, if they want to pet a dog, then they can get their own dog. Three, I tell them, we're training right now, you know, no thank you, and just keep it going.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah,
that's huge. Thank you.
I found that, I found that as long as I like don't make eye contact with the people, I just like keep talking to Josie.
Mm-hmm.
And you're talking to a guy who's been at the dog park, and somebody else's dog has irritated my dog to the point where I wouldn't say my dog was gonna get aggressive, but they were getting ready to correct. And I have a pit bull. And the moment a pit bull corrects, everybody's like, oh my God, aggressive dog, right? Mm-hmm. So knowing that, I correct the dogs for her. Okay, like I'll do the Caesar Milan touch,
Yeah.
and then the dog will yelp. And I've had people say, "What did you do?" And I'll explain it to them, and they'll say, "Oh, okay," and they'll walk away. They accept it. And I get other people, and I had a lady whose dog attacked her pit bull attacked my Chihuahua, and didn't acknowledge my Chihuahua, didn't say, "Is your Chihuahua okay?" Nothing like that. Just took her dog, walked away at the dog park. And I was with the client, and I kept watching. I'm like, all right, I'm not gonna let this happen a second time. The dog, within like 10 minutes, came back to my Chihuahua to attack him, and I corrected that dog with a foot kick to the chest. Okay, and her dog was like 60 pounds to my 8-pound Chihuahua. She flips out, starts swearing at me. F you, F this, who the F do you think you are? And I was like, lady, your dog just attacked my Chihuahua and you didn't say sorry or anything and walked away. And now you're pissed because I did that because your dog was gonna attack again. I ain't playing that game, right?
Yeah.
There's people out there like that as well, okay?
Yeah.
That's why I go, don't let it bother you. You're just eyes forward, ignore, perfectly fine. Nothing says you have to stop,
Yeah.
okay?
The one other thing that we wanted to ask you about that was been on my mind is every once in a while we do have accidents. Usually it's like, whatever, I can't find my keys, and in the 5 minutes that we're supposed to go outside, she pees after that. It's never in the crate. It's always like our mistakes that she'll like have an accident. And one thing we were talking about is like do we correct that behavior somehow, right? Whether that, like, because whenever she has an accident, our default and everything we've read is like, it's not her fault, it's your fault. Like you have to just clean it up,
take
and
her
take
out,
her outside.
clean it up while she's outside so she doesn't smell it when she gets back, basically.
Yeah, but part of us is saying like, are we like not reacting enough?
Yeah, are we enabling it, or like by not actively like negatively reinforcing it, are we demonstrating to her that the wood floor is a reasonable spot to do her thing?
No, so potty training is all about consistency and habit, okay? So yes, unless she's actively peeing when you see her, you can't correct. I'm not a fan of the nose to the pee thing because dogs don't relate that way. And I've had people who have used that method and they swear by it. Okay. Now I didn't endorse it. They just said this is how we've trained all our dogs. I go, well, I don't care as long as you're not like beating up your dog for no reason. It's like whatever, right? But it's a very simple solution though. Okay. What do you think the solution is?
I mean,
be more consistent with taking her outside.
Yeah.
Think before that, right? So if you're getting ready to take her outside and in that 5-minute time frame, there's a piddle because your attention is distracted, right? What do you think would...
like on our end, like make sure we've got everything ready to go before we introduce the idea of going outside to her.
That's one. What else?
I mean, for me, if I see it happen, because it has happened a few times, we'll like catch her in the middle of it, and that in that moment, what I'd love to do is kind of like bonk her or say no, and like at least let her know that I'm dissatisfied with what's going on.
You could do that, but it's simpler.
Okay.
And it's actually a blend of what Eric said, and I would just kennel her.
Okay.
Right? So if it's that 5-minute window, so I always tell people, don't take your puppy out until you're ready.
Okay.
Right? So most common thing is they'll wake up, let the puppy out, go put their shoes on. What did you do?
Yeah.
Right? Where I tell them reverse it. Puppy's still in the kennel. I go get ready. I go about my morning. If I want to have coffee first, I'll have coffee first, and then I go take out the puppy. Right? So it's immediately out. So then for the puppy, all they learn is every time I use the bathroom, it's always outside, right? Okay. So in my opinion, they don't really learn that going inside is a bad thing, okay? Because for her, your place is a really big kennel.
Yeah.
is what it is, right? So, and dogs aren't meant to, how do you say, be taught to not go within like your entire living space, right? Definitely where they eat and sleep, they don't want to do that. But she's meant to be outside where they pee and poop on and anything else, and there's no problem, right? So I don't mind the bonking or whatever if you catch her in the act, but it's really going on to humans. So I will agree here is I go, okay, let's say you're gonna take her out, but you have to put your shoes on and get your keys and put your coat. Then I pick her up, pop her in the kennel, go get ready, then bring her leash, take her out the kennel, and then go out.
Got it.
Okay. And then that's potty training kind of works backwards. So for like the dog to learn to like that going inside, like not going inside and it's always outside, is just a lot of consistency of going outside. And eventually you don't have to worry about killing her for those last 5 minutes because she'll understand to wait to or associate to go outside.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
Other question?
Yeah. The only other thing I can think of is like, I think she still associates her crate with like, I'm not with mom and dad. And I mean, she'll only like whine for like a minute or two, but she doesn't go in there on her own. Like she's never excited about going in there. Like she'd rather sleep all night on the hardwood floor than go into her crate. So we're trying to like literally as of today, I'm trying to teach her place and like treat whenever she's on her bed and when she's like in the crate. If you have any other suggestions on how to like get her more excited about the crate, I'd love to hear it.
Or does that fall into that category of in the first 6 months, don't expect too much of them?
Yeah.
When it comes, because that's technically behavior. So obedience wise, I don't expect much. So think of obedience as education and behavior is morality. Okay. Math, English, science, sit, stay, come. Don't jump, don't bark, don't bite, don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat, right? So when it comes to obedience, it's like trying to teach a kindergartner algebra, right? Unless they're a freak genius, it's not going to happen, right? Mm-hmm. So obedience-wise, I don't expect much. Behavior-wise, you can definitely start, because it's just about disagreeing with things, right? Mm-hmm. You're not going to do that. You're not going to whine in the kennel, so on and so forth. I am on the ball with the kennel should be a positive. Sorry, my screen switched. A positive. But I don't worry about the puppy or dog being excited about it.
Okay.
Because it creates a reverse problem, which is if the dog is excited about going into the kennel, okay, that's going into the kennel. The problem is they're going to be excited while they're staying in the kennel, and that excitement may potentially become frustration because now that energy can't go anywhere; it's stuck. Mm-hmm. I want the kennel to be a calm place, a resting place.
Yeah,
that makes sense. So it's positive in the sense of it means good things, but not in the sense of excited.
Okay,
right.
That makes sense.
It does. She's like a toddler sometimes when she goes in. She like will whine really loudly for a minute or two and then like realize that she was tired and fall asleep for 2 hours.
Okay. So do you feed only in the kennel or do you feed out the kennel? Did we talk about that?
We only feed outside the kennel. Should we feed in?
Feed in the kennel. Okay, that's one. Feed in the kennel. And what I also do is once you've got the motion of going in, when you put the food bowl down, you know, most puppies just go to eat. To start reinforcing calmness, what I'll do is, and you can, what's complicated is because she's in the kennel, but let's say if we remove that for a second, the puppy's excited for the food. I go to put it down. They go for it. I pull the plate away and they go back, right? And I keep repeating this process. Eventually the puppy goes, every time I move towards the bowl, it disappears and they'll kind of sit back and they'll sit down out of frustration, okay? Then I go to put the bowl down. Then they stand up and I pull it away and they'll sit back down. And I'll put it down, they'll stand back up, pull it back up, sit back down, right? And eventually the puppy starts to relate. Every time I move forward, plate disappears, but when I settle back, it's closer, right? And this is completely no words, because you're working on reinforcing calm state of mind.
Okay.
Okay. So once the puppy is back and sitting and I put the bowl down, they'll look at it and they won't budge. And I'll go break. And that means puppy can now eat. So what you end up training is calmness when they want something, right?
Okay.
So you take that same exercise and then you blend it in with the kennel. Now the puppy is motivated because she's like, I only eat in the kennel. She goes in. Then I go to reinforce calmness. Puppy is passive. She gets the food. I close the kennel door. I say break, and then she gets up and eats. So now I'm reinforcing calmness in the kennel.
Okay. So would you, yeah, to get to that process, would you start by like training the calmness associating with eating and then move it into the kennel, or would you try and do both at
You
once?
can do both. It would just be a little longer.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to start tackling both at the same time, like it's not impossible. It just might take 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay.
You know, and typically what
I'm trying to figure out how we get her in the kennel itself.
you
Usually
can
what we do is we just like pick her up and put her in, and
Yeah,
or
bribe her with a
Yeah.
bully stick or something.
sure, like I don't mind if you use food to go in to lure her, for one thing. If you pick up a puppy and you put them in the kennel, as silly as it sounds, but they don't know how they got in there.
Okay.
Okay, so you want her to go in herself. Whether it's if I push her, right, and you'll see where she'll pull back, and I'll just keep subtly pushing in, and finally the puppy will pop in, and then they'll try to run out, and I'll use the kennel door and I'll close it to kind of put a boundary, saying like you're not going to come out, and then I'll go to open. They'll try to sneak out, and I'll close it, and I keep repeating. And eventually she goes, okay, I go in, but I can't come out until I'm given permission. Okay. But she has to do it herself, and then I can go to feed. You know, so it's like smaller steps that lead to a bigger picture.
Okay.
And it really comes down to how much patience do you have, right? So that whole thing, if you're starting from zero, might take 30 minutes the first time. But puppies learn very fast. So the next time might be 15 minutes, then 10 minutes, then 5 minutes, then a minute, then seconds,
Okay.
right? So
I'm just trying to, if I were to do, because we haven't fed her lunch yet. Lunches, we delayed it a little bit just to join you here. So I'm
Sure.
thinking of doing this like literally as soon as we get off the call.
Mhm.
Would you say, do we start with like just doing the close the door on the kennel, get her calm, and then do the food back and forth? Like
I would get her in the kennel,
Mhm.
right? And you can use, you know, just by placing her in, you can even use her collar, just put a finger in the collar, and she'll resist. She's fine. Then she pops in, then the kennel door. Don't worry about calmness there, just that she holds back. Okay. Then I bring in the food, because the food is where you're really going to work on the calmness.
Okay.
Okay. Outside of feeding, you can even do this with other things, like let's say bully sticks or chew toys and stuff. People tend to do do you want to chew? Do you want to treat? Right? You're creating energy.
Yeah.
And if she's jumping and then you feed her, or people go sit, 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 right? And she's jumping, even if she sits, her brain is still like this, right? If I bring something out, my dogs come and just sit down automatically, and they're completely passive because they've learned I have to be butt on the ground, passive state in order to get what I want.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So even for outside of feeding, if it's whether it's just a treat, and think outside of training, this isn't obedience. Okay. This is manners. Is anytime you give something to her, when you give her something, the state of mind she's in is what you're reinforcing.
Right.
So if she's jumping in excitement and you say that's cute and you feed her, you're rewarding excitement. So then every time she sees that thing, she's going to go to that state.
Mm-hmm.
If you reward passiveness, you're going to see the opposite. And it doesn't mean your dog is depressed. It doesn't mean that your dog isn't going to be excited to a degree. She's just going to be a lot more calmer. Okay. Which then affects the overall behavior of the dog, because what you reinforce is what you get.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's why little dogs are notorious for being little neurotic, excited dogs, because they look like puppies. So people keep treating them as such, and they get stuck in that constant state of stimulation.
That makes sense. Okay.
Cool.
Okay.
I'm ready to try it. We'll see how long it takes.
Yeah.
Let's see here. What's our time? Other questions?
I think I'm pretty good so far.
Yeah. I don't have any right now.
Is there, I mean, any recommendations to us? Any things that we should be thinking about that maybe we're not already, or like things that at 11 or 12 weeks that you start to work on or start to expect to see?
No, I mean, this is typically how puppy classes go. Okay. Typically, the first two classes is a lot of just FYI and FAQ, right? You guys had an extra class on the FAQ stuff. Is this number 2 or 3? It's just 3, right?
3.
Yeah. 3, yeah, right. Because of information, like internet, whatever, right? But puppies, it's typically obedient stuff really doesn't matter, okay? In my opinion, if I know the owner is gonna do more advanced stuff in the future, okay? Positive reinforcement training takes years and only gets you so far.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And typically the ceiling is, once you go out in the real world, it's gonna be a problem. That's like the most common thing, unless you happen to have the perfect dog, which is a very, 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 very tiny percentage, right?
We do.
Yeah, we definitely don't.
So it doesn't hurt. It's great for brain development. But I've trained dogs as old as 12 years old with not a lick of training in their life, and still got the same level of training as another dog that was trained with positive reinforcement for years.
Mm-hmm.
Because of my methods.
Yeah.
So that I definitely promote it. Please do it. It's fun. It's great mental exercise for your puppy and stuff. But people worry too much about that, when really they should be worried about potty training, crate training, raising a puppy that can be independent, and the behavior stuff. Most people don't correct their puppies, and I'm all about correcting puppies. Okay. As long as that core foundation is good, obedient stuff, like for a parent, if you're more worried about raising a good child, like a good person, education really doesn't help with that. Being a genius at math doesn't make me an honest person.
Mm-hmm.
You see that? So for dogs, behaviorally, that's for me important. Because the education stuff, because it's so simple: sit, don't move, come to me when I call you, don't pull the leash. It's really mundane things, very simple to teach when they're old enough, that I'm not worried about getting that stuff done. Everything else that you've noted is standard puppy stuff. Okay. I would definitely, I'm all about self-education and stuff like that. Take everything with a grain of salt. Do what resonates with you. You can always learn something. You can learn what to do, and you can learn what not to do. Is how I look at it. Mm-hmm. Okay. When I was in my beginning of my career and I was looking for answers, I would watch stuff, and even though I was very early on, I would watch something and I'm like, this doesn't resonate with me, but now I know not to do that approach.
Got it.
Right. So I wouldn't overthink things. Okay. Just do at the end of the day what makes you feel best, I think, is probably the best thing that you could do.
That makes sense.
Okay.
So you said that puppy training usually starts with like 3 FAQ sections. What is like an ideal agenda look like for the rest of these sessions?
We would start the luring stuff.
Okay.
So keep doing, because I can always pop in. right? Like, I'm not going to come in and go, I don't know what you did. Like, how far are you in your training, right? I can come in and your puppy might know sit, down, come, name recognition, all that stuff already, right? And I go, great. This is what I would do. I would tweak this. I would change this, do this instead. I did this with another client. They already started training their puppy on treats. And it was real simple stuff, like the sit and then the down. And I'm like, wow, that looks really good. So by the end of the session, we had the puppy doing the sit stay with implied stay. So she would only say sit, the puppy would do it, and she'd walk away for a little bit, come back in, and then feed the puppy. So we made great progress, right? So then they're gonna practice, and the next class I come in, I go, where are you at now? Okay, cool, this is where I would go next.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like I've just kind of been winging it, like, I feel like we should learn stay now, and I don't really have much of a, like,
Linda?
Yeah, no. Our goal is to get her to be a therapy dog eventually. Right. So, and I haven't, like, I don't think that we know much about, like, what's going to help her get us there. So, the main things that we've been practicing are, like, I try and get, whenever strangers want to talk to her, I try and make sure that she sits before talking to them, and I try and make sure that she's not jumping on anyone, just literally by, like, forcing her down. And then I've been starting on, like, sit and stay and down and stuff like that. But I feel like we don't have much of a plan.
Sure. So think of it this way, and I'm going to give you some tips here.
Okay.
On YouTube, if you look up positive reinforcement training, how to, you're going to find a ton of stuff, right? Find a trainer that you like, and they'll typically have a series of videos, okay? Mm-hmm. And just start doing that stuff. With positive reinforcement, you can't screw up your puppy.
Okay.
Right? So you don't have to worry about that. You might create an inconsistent behavior, but I can always tweak that. Okay. And I'm working on videos of my own. I know we do a lot of e-collar and prong collar, so, like, I have tons of stuff on that. And we got puppies coming consistently, so I'm trying to do what I can with what I have. But I'm gonna be putting up.
We will provide you free puppies.
Take care. Yeah. So we're working on that. But future-wise, for your therapy dog stuff, okay, for foundation, gentle leader. Mm-hmm. And going back to earlier about people that want to pet your dog, if you decide yes, or when you want it yes, use it to your advantage. Mm-hmm. Oh, we're training our puppy to be a therapy dog. Yes, you can pet our dog, but please follow our instructions.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you can do that for one. She's on a gentle leader. You want her to have understood that pulling up means to put her butt down, which is correct, right? That was what you're doing. And when she puts her butt down, you release pressure, okay? Mm-hmm. When the person goes to pet Josie, in the beginning, it'd be easier for Josie if you had the person be passive energy. Mm-hmm. Okay, so not, oh my God, puppy.
Yeah.
Passive, right?
What I've been telling them is to basically ignore her.
Okay. So the reason why, because I know what the test looks like, and they're gonna want someone to go pet Josie, and she has to handle that and be well composed. Okay, and you can start that now.
So how do we communicate that to people? Like, I need you to, like, please don't freak out when you pet my dog. Like, I want you to pet her, but don't freak out. How would you, like, communicate that to someone?
Yeah, just pet her calmly, and I would make people, when you tell people, for the most part, we're training our puppy to be a therapy dog, they're all about helping. Yeah. That's a good thing about people, is when you say, hey, I'm training, they're usually incentivized to help and listen, okay? So then you would tell them, please pet her calmly, right? And if I tell you to stop, just hold or freeze, and then I'll tell you to continue, okay? So what it looks like is their passive energy, hopefully they're listening. They took in that instruction. They go to pet Josie. Josie gets excited and jumps up. You would stop the person, pull up on your leash to reinforce the position, relax once Josie settles, and then tell them to continue. And you keep that process, right? So if they make contact with Josie and she stands up, I tell them to stop, pull up, she sits. Once she's sitting and relaxed, then you tell them to continue. Okay. So what you're teaching Josie is she's gonna get pet, but unless she keeps that butt down, it's gonna stop.
Okay.
Okay. So, and I don't make the person pull back. They literally freeze. So if they go to pet and she jumps up, they freeze. And then once Josie settles, they continue. So you're keeping Josie within the context of being pet, that she sees it and it allows her to decipher, why am I feeling this pressure and why am I not being pet? Then once the butt goes down and she feels the contact, she goes, oh, as long as my butt's down, I'll get what I'm wanting. And it starts to stack off of that.
Got it.
At the end, you can feed, you can have the person feed to create positive association with the person. And then it's pretty much that simple, okay? I don't worry about saying sit, okay? I worry about the words later. What you're teaching is just default manners. Mm-hmm. So if you repeat this throughout her puppyhood, ideally as an adult, if she sees someone approach her, remember what I mentioned earlier about the auto sit for what she wants? She's gonna sit. And she's gonna go, I know as soon as I go into the state of mind, I'm gonna get that faster. And as long as I keep in this state of mind, this will continue. Okay, that's the positive way. So that's a simple thing that you can do with your gentle leader. And you can, if you're wanting to push to that degree, that's what I would do. If you're not wanting no contact, period, you can still have her sit when she comes to, like when people come into your personal space. There just wouldn't be any interaction. In the future, if that was detrimental to her learning process, not a big deal, because there's always negatives to correct jumping and stuff like that.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions?
I think that's it.
Yeah.
Do you have any trainers that you recommend, any of your favorite trainers on YouTube that we should be looking at for?
The one I would mention is probably Kiko Pup.
Sorry, say that again.
Kiko Pup. I think it's Kikopup.
Okay.
Okay. I like her for what she is, because she's my kind of energy. She's pretty laid back. There's other guys like Zach George, who's like a very, just a big energy.
Over the top,
and he's like, be like this all the time to keep your dog's attention. I'm like, that's not realistic. Yeah. Kiko Pup, she's anti-me because she's anti-aversives. But for positive only, I would say she's a good trainer.
Got it. Okay. That works.
Anything else?
I think that's it. I think Eric's got a call coming up here in a few minutes.
Sure. So if you need anything else, let us know. And then for next class, FA questions are welcomed. But I would recommend not feeding Josie prior, so that she's hungry, so we can see what's going on with the training and we can start moving towards that.
Great. Yeah, okay. That's awesome.
Thank you. Take care.
Yeah.